Hello, everyone watching at home. My name is Howard Williams, and thank you for watching this video. Today, I'll be doing a short, informative speech, and for my topic, I chose my hobby of drawing. Over the next few minutes, I'll be giving you a little history behind drawing, explaining a few different types of drawing, how I got into drawing originally, and some of the work that inspired me, and lastly, a quick demonstration of how I like to draw one of my favorite childhood characters. But for now, we can start at the beginning. Some of the first drawing are dated back to 26,000 BC on the inside of cave walls and rock shelters, and they were drawn by cavemen in the prehistoric era. It's said that these early drawings were actually the first stages of the written language that's evolved to what we use today. As you can imagine, those cavemen were using some pretty primitive drawing tools, which included the sharp stones like you see here. Also, they used charcoal and some pigment they actually made to give their drawings a little bit more color. As we fast forward a little bit to civilized Western civilizations in the 14th century, we see art and drawing being used for artistic expression. And this coincided with the readily available paper at the time. And as paper was easily more manufactured, and more people had access to it, naturally they began to draw more. We also see drawing being used for reasons other than primitive language or for artistic expression. And such was the case with the famed astronomer Galileo. Galileo was an astronomer and a scientist, and part of his studies included observing the different phases of the moon. And because, of course, Galileo was working with some limited technology, he did possess a telescope. The only way he could record these observations was to draw them himself on paper, as you see here. So quickly through history, we can see that drawing has been used as a primitive language or to express oneself artistically and even for scientific purposes. There are many different tools that can be used when you're drawing. But the one I'd like to tell you about today is my favorite and the first one I ever used, which was a pencil, or at least when it was created, called the graphite point. Referred to as Spanish lead in the 16th century, the graphite point was very popular among those who like to paint murals and portraits, as the artist could draw their subject first and then come back later and add some paint to it to make it look more lifelike. And this was especially helpful when one was working on a piece of art maybe for a year or longer. The graphite point would lead to the invention of the lead pencil in the 18th century, when it was discovered that you could wash and manufacture the graphite, which was a mineral found in some rocks. And you could manufacture it at different degrees of hardness and softness. And that range of texture gave artists a newfound level of contrast and a newfound level of detail in their work. There are many different types of drawing, but generally they all fall into three particular categories. Firstly, we have casual, which includes doodles, doodling, and sketching. Most people are familiar with the former, doodling. If you were ever bored in the classroom or listening to a teacher, you probably drew and doodled in your notebook or in the textbook, which is what you weren't supposed to be doing. Casual drawing typically is rough, unfinished, and light on details. Part of casual drawing is sketching, like I mentioned, and sketching can be done to capture an image or an idea while it's fresh in the artist's mind, but sometimes it's just done with no real means in mind. Secondly, we have preparatory drawing. This is popular among those who like to paint and do murals. As you can see in this image, this artist is doing a light sketch of his subject before he actually paints his portrait. Lastly, we have finished drawing. This includes caricatures, as we have here of Tina Fey. It also includes cartoons like The Simpsons, and also includes all types of different graphic design under the category of finished drawing. Many of these terms I was just learning as I researched this speech. As I said, drawing is a hobby of mine, and I never received any official training or schooling. And I just started drawing at a young age, and I don't remember what age, but I do remember some things from that time that I'd like to share with you now. When I was young, a close friend of our family's owned a video rental store. And because of that, my siblings and I had access really to any VHS cassette that we would want to watch. Yes, I said a VHS cassette that you will put into a VCR and you will watch on a tube television. Anyone watching that does not know what those ancient artifacts are, just so you know, they were also tools used by those cavemen in the prehistoric era. But I did love my VHS cassettes very much. And among my favorites were the Walt Disney VHSs. And I would watch these all the time because I was astounded at how the artwork and the drawings just came to life on the television, or that it was even possible. So I would watch these Walt Disney movies as much as I could, as often as I could. And when I couldn't, I found myself emulating those characters on paper. And the ones you see here on this slide are the ones I like to emulate the most as a child. Mickey and Minnie Mouse and Goofy and Donald Duck, to name a few. And I would draw them constantly at home. And when I found out the girls at school liked Minnie Mouse, I would draw at school constantly. As I got a little bit older and became more of a Saturday morning cartoon watcher, I started to gravitate towards superheroes and the work of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Stan Lee was a writer and Jack Kirby was an artist, and together under Marvel Comics, they created some of the characters you see here today: the Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and their work heavily influenced the type of drawing that I like to do, and I always aspired to draw at that level. And in a way, drawing these superheroes actually helped me discover a superpower of my own, if you will. I couldn't fly and I wasn't super strong, but I did discover a talent that I had. And that talent gave me the power to express myself artistically. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and show you how I would go ahead about drawing one of my favorite childhood characters, Donald Duck. Everybody knows Donald Duck, one of my favorites as a kid. I think I liked him a lot because he was angry all the time, but he looks happy today. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration about how I would like to do that. Behind me here, I have a piece of paper. And not unlike the preparatory drawing I mentioned earlier, I did a quick sketch of Donald earlier. And now I'm just going to go over it with a Sharpie so you can kind of see what that looks like if I were just drawing in my free time. I like to start at the top of my page. So I can work from the top down, so I can scale it a little bit better. Sometimes if I start in the middle, then I will end up having to cut off an arm or the top of the head, and I'll be so far into my work I can't start over. So I'm going to work my way from the top down. I do a lot of quick strokes when I'm drawing, nothing fancy. My style is kind of unfinished, not too polished. So you'll see how this works out in just a couple of minutes. So here we go. Quick Donald Duck, 2 minutes, not too fancy. Maybe I'll put a little color on it later on. I hope you enjoyed the speech. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for your time.